Good to go?
Yes.
Welcome back to the Open Up podcast and to episode 89 with Happiness Co-Ambassador Shannon Edwards. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
uh, First question straight off the bat. Could you please describe the way that you view yourself as a woman and or human?
Yeah. The first word that comes to mind is strong. I think strong because it takes a lot of work and a lot of commitment to pull down the facades that you put up over time. And I've worked really hard to try and break through those and to let them down and to let myself be vulnerable. I also think strong because I am working really hard to not let my mistakes define who I am, and to be better and working on that every day, no matter what's going on, no matter what's around.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
It's a really good answer.
I don't have the muscles there yet.
Well, me neither.
Maybe one day.
Me neither, so we're twins.
Mentally strong.
Seeing as I guess your story sort of starts in childhood, do you want to just dive straight in and walk us through everything from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So from the outside, my life looks amazing. Anyone that knows me, knows my family, knows that I've had a very privileged upbringing. I've lived in 4 countries. I have been to 28 countries. I have culture underneath my belt. I've always had a job. I've got 2 amazing parents and an amazing sister and family around me, and I've always been supported in anything that I want to do. So life has always been good from the outside. When I was in my teens, I was sexually assaulted by someone that was really close to me. And that is a moment of impact in my life that I put aside and that I felt ashamed and guilt around. And I think when I think back on my life, there are 3 points, 3 moments of impact. So that would be the first one.
Yeah.
The second one was that I was in a relationship with a narcissist. I just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
And the third is that I terminated a pregnancy as well. My story goes back to being sexually assaulted and what that meant to me and the way that I saw myself. I let myself become an object, and I didn't value human connection, things that people sought after in relationships.
Yeah.
It's not something that I valued. And I would attribute it to that moment of impact in my life.
So what was the story you told yourself about what was happening, I guess, like while it was happening and like in the days or weeks after?
I had a lot of shame and guilt around, and my mind going, you let this happen, you didn't stop it. And that's something that I've carried for a long time, and it's something that I really needed to unpack. It was, what effect does this have on the people around me if I share it? So it's something that I held close to me and kept my perfect life from the outside and suffered behind the scenes. So it was putting up that facade and not letting people know that something had happened to me. My mum, I'm really close to, and she picks up on my behaviors, and she knew something was wrong. And that is when it opened the conversation up about what had happened, and trying to not let her see how hurt I was by it.
Yeah.
But also that I wasn't in a position to do anything about it. I didn't want to do anything about it. I didn't want to be that problem. I didn't want to make it a problem. I was prepared just to sweep it under the rug and walk away. And that's essentially what I did.
Okay. And with your mum noticing that behaviour, does that mean you were able to share it with her?
I did. I shared with her what happened. I think at the end of that conversation, it brought us closer together.
Yeah.
She shared something with me when I told her about it, and and I don't think she will ever realize, had a massive impact on me, and the strength that I have had to keep going.
How long was it between the incident and being able to open up to your mum?
A couple of weeks. It wasn't too long. We would see this person quite regularly, and I started to pull away. And when there's something that you frequently do and you start to pull away from that, the people that are usually in those situations with you notice that something's up.
Yeah. What was it? I guess, can you walk me through, I guess, talking to her about it, how you were feeling, if you remember that, and what it was like afterwards?
Fear. Fear would be the first thing. And I don't remember the conversation word for word. I remember where I was standing. I remember being scared to tell her. I didn't know what the outcome of that was. It also made me feel like I was a victim. This is something that happened to me. And it's also the thought pattern around that. Like, again, did I let it happen? I didn't stop it. And does this change the way that she sees me? And does she think that she failed in protecting me, her child? Like she's worked so hard to give me the life that she thinks that I deserve. And in a split moment, like I don't want her to feel like she failed that either.
Yeah. It's quite odd, hey, having that, telling yourself that story, almost as if you're letting them down by being this victim of the sexual abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to let her down. And for someone that knows everything and that you're so close to be so scared to tell them something, it's not a situation that's ideal. And you don't know how someone's going to react in
Yeah.
that moment either.
So how did that, I guess, having to keep that perfect life and wear that mask, keeping that secret buried from everyone but your mum, how did that impact your behaviour moving forward?
I got the nickname Hurricane Eddie.
Hurricane Eddie.
Hurricane Eddie, yeah. Because I saw myself as an object and I didn't value connection. And I just wanted to feel significant and not like a victim. I went after anyone and everyone that gave me attention. Um, I was always better friends with the guys than I was the girls. So I already had one thing in my favor. Um, and I suppose, thinking back on it, it became a bit of a game to me.
Yeah.
I probably didn't realize it at a time, but when you chase something that you want that you know that you can't have, it makes it thrilling, it makes it exciting, and I just didn't care who it was going to affect, who was in my way. I was literally a hurricane. And
Wow.
I remember telling someone about a situation. And in saying that Hurricane Eddie, it was because I was a home wrecker.
Okay.
That's the term. I was a home wrecker. I have never cheated on a partner ever, but I have always been the person that someone has cheated on their partner with. And it's never easy to say that. It's never easy to admit that. And I did that to so many people that it blew up in my face. I was literally a hurricane ruining houses.
So
Hence Hurricane Eddie.
when, oh, I get it now, Edwards.
Yeah. Hurricane Eddie. Yeah, this guy that I was working with, I was telling him the story and he went, yeah, your nickname's Hurricane Eddie. And I laughed it off. Like, I didn't even understand the concept. And I think it was because I didn't value the emotional connection that people had.
Yeah.
Because I saw myself as an object. I saw going after people as a game. And when it blew up in my face, people would turn around and say to me, why? And I went, you know what? It's not my problem. I'm not the one in the relationship. You're the one in the relationship. Don't have a problem with me. Have a problem with the person that you're with.
Yeah.
And it's like I, on reflection, set out to make sure that guy was seen as a horrible person because of what happened to me.
That's a good insight. That's a really good insight, especially for someone in the same situation who doesn't understand what they're going through.
Yeah, I just didn't recognize the behaviors. And I became toxic to myself.
So for
Um,
someone in that position, like you said, it's exciting, and I know like the thrill of the chase. It is exciting, and then once you get to that point and the chase is over, the thrill's sort of gone. But for you, I guess when the thrill's over, that means you've wrecked some sort of relationship. Was there ever any feeling of guilt or shame around that, or was it all sort of deflection, like you said?
it was definitely deflection. It's not that I wouldn't go out and tell people that this is what this person has done. Um, I was, I became, I suppose, like the game maker, because they would cheat on their partner, and it would be, you can't tell anyone. And so it's like you've got something that you can dangle above them at any point in time. Um, and I stayed friends with those people, and I think for them it was more around fear. If I do something that hurts this person, they've got something over me. And for me, who wasn't worried about other people's thoughts and feelings, I didn't have a problem with them feeling like that.
That's a that's a cool insight as well, knowing that you're putting yourself in this position, and the guy would eventually tell you that you couldn't tell anyone. That's like almost throwing it back to the incident and not being able to tell anyone about it.
Yeah, and I think that also gave me an excuse, because when that person felt so guilty, or something happened in their relationship, they used it as an excuse. Well, I cheated on you, or it became like a bragging thing. I was that person that was easy,
Yeah,
um, and that's the name that I got for myself. And in those moments when people flip that back on you, so you've had something looming over them, and they go, you know what, I'm going to use it back against you. I'm going to get myself out of the situation that I am by throwing you under the bus. Um, that hurts, and I didn't realize that that's what I was doing to them either.
yeah,
And I remember clearly, I was at work, and two girls, it came out within a week of each other that their partners had both cheated on them with me, and they were best friends. And they came into my work and stood at my, I was in retail, they stood at my counter. Did you do this? Nah. Well, this person told me that you did this. Nah, I didn't do that. You need to go have a conversation with your partner. No, they told me, or this person's told me, that this is what you've done. And how can you look at yourself? Like, how can you stand here and tell us that you didn't when people are telling us that you did? So, well, this is not a conversation that you need to take up with me. This is a conversation you need to take up with your partner. I'm not the one in the relationship. So I never owned my actions, and I tried to throw the other person back under that bus.
yeah,
And that's the deflection. And I think that is the bit that people didn't see.
yeah. It's a good way to have power over that one person being the guy in the relationship, but it's a good way to make sure that you never create any real tangible connections with people because you are seen as this Hurricane Eddie.
Yeah. Hurricane, what a terrible nickname.
I'm surprised it wasn't Easy E.
Easy. No, Hurricane Eddie. A bit of a ring to
Yeah.
it.
All right. So, being in that position, do you have an understanding of why you couldn't own any of that, especially when you were confronted with it?
Um, not at the time. Um, Now that I have taken the time to look back on it, now that I've taken the time to understand what an emotional connection is and how valuable connection between people are, and how important that is, I have learned to understand my wrongs, the things that I did wrong, and the role that I played in my life and other people's lives. And um, I didn't realize, until I was asked three questions, in a 21-day challenge for Happiness Co's homework pillar, that um, I was linking it back to being a victim, to being an object, and um, to being that person that didn't value that connection. I didn't understand that I didn't understand connection.
Yeah.
If that
And
makes sense in a
and
roundabout way.
if you're always the victim, then you can't be in a position where you can take ownership of hurting someone.
No, absolutely not, because it's not about what you did, it's about everybody else and what they do to you.
Yeah. That's a profound insight too. How do you feel about yourself now, knowing that you were Hurricane Eddie?
Um, I don't try and hide it now. I've made amends with some of the people that I hurt that know. There are still people out there that do not know, who are still with their partners to this day.
Well, okay.
And it's that's hard, but I also respect the connections that they have these days, and I'm not one to go and pull that apart.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I was having this conversation with someone else as well. They weren't too sure whether they should reach out and let the partner know that they'd, cheated or their partner had cheated on them. But I think you have to look at the situation and look at the person. Like, are they the same person that they were back then? Because more often than not, people have changed. And the person that you're holding a grudge against doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a concept that I really struggled to understand, because when you grow up, it's always, if someone does something wrong by you, don't go back, because people can't change. People don't change. Leopards don't change their spots.
Yeah.
And that's not true. And I've learned that I'm not the same person that I was back then. Yes, I did those things. Yes, I had bad thought patterns, but I have become more self-aware that I am not that person anymore, and I wouldn't intentionally do that to someone. And that's not to say that I'm not. That's not to say I'm perfect. There are definitely slip-ups, absolutely, and I have to pull myself back into line. Just falling back into old behaviors. And it's not, I would say that fundamentally, I haven't changed as a person. What I've changed is the awareness that I have about my behaviors, is probably a better way of putting it. I recognize those behaviors when they are popping up, and I have to pull myself back into line.
Nice.
Because, yeah, that moment of impact happened. It hasn't changed. It still impacts me and the person I am today, because it is a massive thing in my life. And I viewed myself as an object for such a long time. And at the moment, yeah, I'm not perfect, and I do need to pull myself back up.
Do you feel like you've taken the steps to relinquish, I guess, the story you told yourself from that moment on?
Yeah, absolutely. I have focused a lot of attention into self-love, learning to build that connection with myself, learning to respect myself, and not to see myself as an object. And when you have been in a pattern of behavior, or seen yourself for something for so long and told yourself something for so long, it's really hard to undo that. And I think that's why there's still slip-ups, there's still mistakes, but it's something that if you work on every day, eventually one day, I'm hoping that I will be a different person. I won't fall back into those behaviors.
And I think making progress each and every day allows us to be content, because we know if we're not making progress, then we're still that same person with those same issues who's going to fuck up in the same way.
Yeah. There's something that someone says about, are you committed to being better, or are you committed to being right?
Yeah.
And I was always committed to being right, never better. And now it's about being better. It's about acknowledging when I'm wrong. It's about, I fucked this up yesterday, and today I'm not going to do that. So those fuck ups are getting further and further apart, which is good.
That's awesome. So back to this whole situation blowing up in your face. As someone who was deflecting a lot of the blame, not taking ownership, how did you deal with that?
At the time, it was hidden from family. It was hidden from friends. It was very much a one-way solo trip to a black hole for me. I I don't know how else to put that. You are so ashamed and you're so guilty of everything that's around you, and you are too busy deflecting that you let you go.
Yeah.
I lost myself. I became a person that I didn't know anymore, and that followed me through life. And I became that person that I didn't know even more. I got further away from the person who I thought I was. So I became my own worst enemy, really.
Yeah.
And
And what actions did you take to, I guess, process, deal with, or cope with that?
um, at the time,
Be it bad or good.
I, at the time I ran, flight or fight, and I took flight, and I covered it under. I'm going away. I'm going to do a gap year, and I'm going to go do something good, and people are going to see me as a good person. So I went overseas and volunteered for 9 months, um, helping people with such small things in life that would make sure that their day was better than what it could have been. And I was seen from the outside as this amazing person that's given up her time to go and help others. And again, that made me feel special. It made me feel significant. It made me deflect and suppress what I had done and the way that I'd made people feel. I was on the other side of the world, and no one could get to me.
Yeah. Did you feel like a fraud being in that position, doing all this good, knowing you were being viewed as this good person, but having like this secret life back home that had blown up?
I don't think I acknowledged it. I think I suppressed it that much that it's not until you look back, and you get asked questions that you go, yes, I ran away. I was a chicken. I didn't want to face what I'd done. I didn't want to face the hurt that I'd created. I didn't want to face the pile of mess that I left in Hurricane Eddie's destruction. So what better way than to run to the other side of the world where you know no one, you don't have family, you don't have your close friends, and you have the opportunity to be someone else, because no one knows you and no one knows where you've come from.
Yeah.
You can reinvent yourself. But in doing that, when you run away, you have to come back. So 12 months later, I came back.
And what happened?
People don't forget. People do not forget. When you cause people hurt and pain, they do not forget. And it was all waiting back here for me.
Cool. So what happened?
What happened? I had a drink thrown on me one night by someone that I had hurt, and my thing behind that was, can't you just get over it? It's been a year. Like, what? Why are you still stuck here? You're not even with this person anymore. And I think for me again that was a deflection. That wasn't actually going, you know what? Yes, I fucked up. And it wasn't until a few years later, and I ended up working with one of the girls. And I said to her, I'm really sorry. Like I did not realize what I was doing. I didn't realize the impact that it had on you. And when you asked, I hid it. And I'm genuinely sorry. I'm not that person. I didn't understand what I was doing. And she went, "It's cool. Like, I've moved on. You actually got me out of a relationship that was horrible and I shouldn't have been in. Like, you saved that and I'm now with the most amazing person." Um, and hearing that, I went, "Oh, it's really not that bad." But that's one person out of many. And that doesn't mean that everybody else feels the same. But I can't dwell on things that happened 10 years ago either. And I can't let that hold me back from living the life that I want to live and being a better person. I can't let how they feel in if they haven't worked through things. I can't let that stop me from being a better person either.
So, what's the thought process while navigating that, knowing that someone feels negatively towards you and at times they may express it? How do you go about not falling into that black hole that you created for yourself and perpetuating self-loathing?
Um, I think it comes back to that word strong. I have had to work so hard on myself to forgive myself, that if people still are dwelling on something, it's whilst it's something that I've done and it's a mistake that I made,
Yeah.
it's not my responsibility to make them feel better either. I've forgiven myself for what I've done and I've let that pain out of my life. And if people wanted to talk about it, then, I need to own that and I need to be okay, with what I've done, which I am now. But it's taken away from, I don't need to make things right with them if I've made things right with myself. And that's kind of where the situation I'm in now. That's the point I'm at now.
And I think that's the beauty of progress, especially like as a woman, human, man, whatever. Uh, as long as you're progressing and getting further and further away from that person that hurt someone, then you can really start to love yourself and appreciate yourself and acknowledge like the steps you're taking. Because if you hadn't, then it's quite easy to fall into that trap and believe whatever someone tells you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm my self-love bucket has grown immensely, in such a short period of time. And if I can keep going at the pace that I'm going and keep working on myself at the pace that I'm going with more intensity, um, I will be a different person again in a year, in 2 years. And I'm determined to not let my mistakes define who I am today. But I'm also willing to own the shit that I've done.
Yeah.
And I think that sharing that with you, and being open about it is, the first step to that. This is stuff that I haven't made public knowledge.
Wow.
And that perfect life that people think that I have, that's the facade. That is what I've let people see. And again, it comes back to playing that game. I posted on my Facebook this week. I posted on my Facebook a year ago. I choose what I want you to see.
Yeah.
You don't know me. I choose what I want you to see. And I think that's the power of social media as well. People that know me and people that have spoken to me in the past 2 years will know that my life is not, all unicorns and rainbows. They will know that there's shit still floating around in it. And I shared something with one of the girls this week, and she said, like, I didn't even know. And I went, I didn't tell you. That's why you don't know. And I think that's the power of people as well. But yeah, I think
Okay.
open up. Open up.
Well, I hope you're proud of yourself. You deserve to be.
Yeah, working on it. Working on it, getting better.
Let's fast forward to the relationships that you get yourself into.
Yeah. So I found myself in a relationship at 18. I think when you have sought connection from people and not actually understood the emotional connection. And people are usually people who use you as an object, they're gone the next day. And this person stuck around. And I didn't realize it at the time. It was only throughout a period of 4 years that I learned what a narcissistic person was. The way that I felt is I felt loved. I had someone sitting there telling me that I was important to them, that I meant something to them. But on the back end of that and behind closed doors, it was I wouldn't usually date people like you. I wouldn't see people like you. Wow. You're not fit. You're not a brunette. He criticized the job that I was in, doing care work. He was conscious that I was providing personal care to men, and didn't like that. And the conversations that we had always ended up in an argument. And I became a person in that relationship that I would pick at small things to start an argument, because I knew at the end of an argument, he would turn around and go, "I'm sorry, I love you." And when you are craving connection from someone and not understanding what connection is and being told your entire life that "I love you," are 3 vital words. They're the only 3 words that you want to hear. And that is the situation I found myself in, that I would start arguments, because I knew at the end of it, he wasn't willing to let me go, and there was no way I was going to let him go. And so hearing "I love you" made everything okay. And it made me excuse the behaviors in that relationship. And behind closed doors, like people wouldn't know that it got to the point that I would come home from work and he would hug me just to find out what underwear I had on. And then it would turn into an argument that, you didn't wear full briefs, you wore a G-string. Who are you trying to impress? Like, who are you dressing up for? And it's like, I'm going to work. Like, why does my choice of underwear matter? It's not like anyone's seeing it. And he's like, well, then why are you wearing it? I remember I went to a family event one day in a T-shirt, and I got home that day and he said, "You can never wear that T-shirt again." I went, "What?" He goes, "It's too low cut." I went, "It's a T-shirt. It sits up here. Like, it's not low cut." He goes, "Yeah, it's too low cut. You can't wear it. You can't wear T-shirts." And I didn't recognize that was not okay. And when I say I made excuses, things got to the point that, he would go through my phone, just to try and find stuff. He locked me outside one day to go through my phone. I now, and it's not something that people know, and it's not something that I share, get anxious about going into a room by myself or being left in a place by myself, because he left the house one day and his phone was next to the bed. And I found it, and when I picked it up, it had been on record for the entire time he'd been out of his house. So here is someone that I loved, who supposedly cared about me, and they were recording me in a place that I was supposed to feel safe. And I don't have answers as to why. I will never have answers as to why. And now, like, going into rooms, babysitting, house sitting, friends, I get so anxious in a room because it's, well, are they watching me?
Yeah.
Like, is there something in this room?
Wow.
And that's something that I've had to work on, and it's not something that people know, and it's not something that I let on. And you don't realize how much such a small behavior can affect you for such a long time either.
That's having someone you love do that is just another barrier to connection as well, especially going into rooms with other people, or if you're alone and worrying about that. It sort of I guess, distances you from other people because you're so worried about what someone's going to hear you say.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And I was having this conversation yesterday, and there's things that you can't take back, and one of those is you can't take back something that you say. And the minute it's recorded, it's there. It's there for anyone to hear, anyone to listen to, anyone to be shared, for it to be shared with. Um, and I think I didn't associate the two, but in hindsight, it's what am I doing and who is going to see this or who is going to hear this.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what he was using it for.
Yeah. And I can understand now why you haven't opened up to too many people. Why not too many people know the real you, what's happened throughout your life and what you've done. That's a massive worry, especially if you're bearing your soul and you're worried that it's going to leave whatever circle you're in or leave that connection you have with one person in a room.
Yeah. And if you don't know that you're being recorded, you don't have control
Yeah.
over what is being listened to. Like you don't know. And it's the fear of the unknown. Like I don't know how you're going to interpret this, or like I don't know who's going to listen to this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the first time that I found it. There was a second time that I found it, and it wasn't that I found the device, it was that I'd had a conversation, and part of that conversation with my mum got repeated back to me, and it was, how do you know? And that's when he had to fess up. Well, I don't, like, and it's like, well, I've caught you out doing this before. Have you done it again? And the excuse to come up with that is, well, I just wanted to know what you were up to while I was downstairs.
Wow.
Like, I thought we could listen to it later. And it's like, what? And me being young and naive and having that white picket fence life, that is something that you've always wanted. It's not something that I was prepared to pull apart to question it further, and I let it happen. I let those behaviors happen.
Yeah. So with someone who's like that, who's constantly criticizing you, telling you that you're not the sort of person that they'd usually date, recording you, do you have an understanding of why he was doing that sort of stuff?
I don't know about him and how he would see it. His ex had cheated on him, not once, but multiple times. And there was a lot of jealousy in that space. I don't think he would actually ever acknowledge that his behaviors were not okay, because in his mind, he justified them, and he justified them every time.
Yeah.
So I think now that I'm more aware and have more knowledge, I would say that jealousy was the driver in that. And also me being in a space where I was emotionally abused and told that you'll never find someone better. You're not someone who I would usually go for. I am supporting you. I am providing a roof over your head. I am giving you life. I took on a stepmom role to his child as well. I had responsibilities. I think all of that combined, why would you leave it?
Yeah.
Like, why would you walk away when you have what people think is a perfect life? And when I was talking earlier about having that thing that you can dangle over someone, I think that is what he had over me.
Yep.
And when someone has become such a big part of your life, why would you let that go? Why would you walk away? What would my life look like if this person was not there?
Yeah, it's a massive contrast between the person that you were as Hurricane Eddie, like for all intents and purposes, like narcissistic tendencies or behavior as well, not owning up to your role in whatever happened, and then finally breaking through that and opening up, and then coming into this relationship, and you're now with a narcissist.
Yeah.
Um, with the way that he treated you, obviously it's hard to acknowledge at the time, but looking back, do you feel there was ever any hint of he's so, I guess, jealous that it could be misconstrued as caring? Like he loves and cares about me so much that he doesn't want anyone else to be anywhere near me?
Um, I don't think I ever had that thought pattern. And I think that again comes back to here's someone that's not making me feel like an object. Um, I'm special in his eyes. It wasn't about other people in that, and I didn't think that he was trying to protect me from other people. Um, I think for me, he was protecting the white picket fence, that view that I have a partner at home, I have someone that loves me and cares for me, and I think I was the one that pulled my life apart. I'm the one that disassociated from my friends, my family. I'm the one that made him the center of my life. It wasn't. I don't think it was him protecting me so much as me protecting the view that I wanted people to have.
Okay. Yeah. I can understand that then. So fast forwarding to eventually getting out of this relationship, how does that happen, and how do you, as this person who's been on the end of receiving this sort of treatment for so long, finally break away from something like that?
We had had a massive argument. It started over me starting an argument about you leave the cupboards open in the kitchen all the time. Just
Wow.
shut the damn cupboards. And this conversation, this argument, I was picking at him. I was egging him to lose his temper. And he spat it and he went out with his friends. My friends rang me and said, "Come out. We're having a couple of wines. Join us." And I rang him and asked for permission. I rang him knowing he was so mad at me, and I knew going out would make him even madder. And I rang him and asked him for permission. And the response I got was, "Yeah, sure. Off you go." I was like, "Oh, okay, no worries." And he said, "But you need to come and pick me up. You have to pick me up, so you can't drink." So I went out. I think I had a glass, and he rang me and said, "Where are you?" I went, "Well, with the girls." And he goes, "You're supposed to be picking me up." I said, "No, I said I'd be 2-3 hours." He goes, "No, you said you'd be 2. It's been 2. Where are you? You're supposed to be picking me up." And I remember the phone calls bouncing back and forth. And he would ring me and go, "That's fine. Like, it's okay, you hang out." And then he'd ring me back and go, "You're supposed to be here. And if you're not coming, then we're done." And then he'd hang up and I'd go, "Well, if we're done, I'm staying. Like, I'm not going to go chase after him." And then he'd ring me back and go, "But you're supposed to come pick me up. Like, you're not here." And I just remember it bouncing back and forth. And I remember the girls sitting there going, "You can't go and get him. Just let him go." And I went, "No, I have to go and get him."
Yeah.
And I went and picked him up, and he yelled at me. He sat in the car and yelled at me the entire way home. And I kicked him out of the car and I said, "You can walk. I'm not putting up with this anymore. I don't deserve this." And I got home and I felt terrible. And I went and tried to pick him up, and he refused to get in the car. So I drove back home, went to bed. He slept in his daughter's bedroom. She was at her mum's. And I woke up in the morning and the entire house was clean. And I just got up and went and made my breakfast and sat outside. And he came outside and said, "So what are we doing? Like, are we sorting this out? Are we having a conversation? Or is this done?" And I said, "You know what? I think it's done. And I think the only reason that I was able to say I'm out, I'm done, is because he gave me the option to say that.
Yeah.
Um, it's I would never have turned around and gone, I'm done. Um, but he gave me an option, and I took that option. And his response to that was great. You've got 30 minutes. I'm going to get my car. When I'm back, I want you and all your shit gone. And 30 minutes to pack up 4.5 years of your life is not much. And I remember one of the girls going, this is what's happened. I need you to come and help me. And in two tiny cars, you can fit a lot of shit. So a lot that day. But I don't think that I would have left that relationship if I wasn't given an option. I had let his behavior become acceptable. That one night he came home and he wanted to go through my phone and I said no, and he trashed the entire bathroom. He broke the shower screen. Shampoo, conditioner, body wash bottles were in pieces across the floor. And I remember sitting in that room, hearing the crashing, hearing the banging, being so scared for myself, but also scared for what he was doing to himself in that bathroom. But I still stayed, and I made excuses for that. And, I got a new bathroom out of it, and I wasn't going to turn around and tell people this is the reason I got a new bathroom. Because at the end of the day, I didn't want to damage that image of that perfect life that people want.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought I had.
It shows the lack of self-respect in that moment where he gives you the out and you finally take it. The fact that you couldn't respect yourself enough to do that for yourself. Like you were so scared of hurting him and leaving that image that you put yourself last.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, upon reflection, my self-love was not there. Like I was literally a shell of a person. I wasn't worried about my feelings. I wasn't worried about things that I enjoyed doing. I wasn't worried about the connections in my life. I was too busy trying to feel significant in his life, to make sure that I was wanted, to make sure that I would always hear those words, I love you. And, coming out of that, it is, and having someone tell you, you will never find someone, you'll never have someone as good as me. You sit in that fear of, I will never find someone. I will never find someone as good as this person. And it was my own self-talk that I think held me there. It was fear of being alone, and no one wants to be alone.
Yeah.
And coming back from the way that I felt when feeling like an object and being destruction and being in that black hole, like I was alone then, and I know what it felt like, and I was not prepared to do that. And I think without acknowledging it, I did actually feel alone in that relationship. I didn't feel like a person.
Yeah, and that's what people do when they're constantly grinding you down like that, belittling you, degrading you, is that they want you to feel so shit about yourself that you have to stay with them.
Yeah. And I remember I had a conversation with someone a couple of months ago, and I was learning about family violence and what family violence, what constitutes as family violence. And going through school, you don't learn what is okay and what is not okay.
Yeah.
You know that hitting's not okay. You know that people forcing themselves on you is not okay. But you don't learn emotionally what is and is not okay. And I think for me, I didn't know that because I was sitting in a space of I have this person that tells me that they love me. I have this person that tells me that they care about me. And I'm willing to ignore all the shit behaviors for those few good moments. And I think it's a really big thing that, at 18, when you're so impressionable, um, and you've been told your entire life that these are the steps that life look like, and um, you don't understand what constitutes as family violence, and the behaviors that he had, whilst not physical, emotionally, it's family violence.
Yeah.
And I think it's a powerful lesson for me, and I think it's something that is not spoken about enough, and I don't think it's shared
Yeah.
enough.
And
I don't
even
understand it.
even him trashing the bathroom like he did is like I guess a show of strength on his end to induce some sort of state of fear, like I'm doing this, but this could easily happen to you.
That's right. You just don't know, and you're too scared. You don't know what's going to happen next. Like, you've seen them in action, and it could be you. Like, you just don't know. And he was 7 years older than me. He was much taller than me. He went to the gym all the time. Um, and when someone is standing there, you don't want to be on the other end of it either.
Yeah.
Knowing what he can do, and I think that's a great point that you've raised. And I don't think that it's probably not something that I acknowledged in the situation either. I didn't know why I felt the way that I did. I didn't know why I kept staying. Um, I didn't know why I made excuses. And I think that, as I learn more about myself, and I learn more about fear, and how that can show up in your life, I think, yeah,
Okay.
you just don't know.
Let's fast forward to you going through like this guilt and shame regarding your pregnancy.
Um, yeah, that still hits home for me. It's not something that I've worked through. It's not something that I've completely. I wouldn't say I'm completely okay with it still.
Yeah.
It's been a few years now. I still have my scans. For me, I remember I had gone away with some of the girls, and I got off the plane and I ran straight for the bathroom. I was really sick, and I went, I can't be, like, it's not possible. And I remember taking the test, and those two lines showing up, and going, I have to tell him. We'd only been together for a year. He was younger than me. And I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to lose him, and I didn't know what that meant for us. And telling him, it was scary, because you don't know the reaction to that. I feel like I have done a lot in my life. I've been very privileged, as I said, and I sat there and went, I'm okay if it means that we have to go through with this. And I think that the stigma and the conversations around termination, it's not something that's widely spoken about. You feel it. I felt ashamed that, this is actually a possibility. Like, this is a very high possibility that I'm going to have to do this.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the doctors, and the doctor said, you need to go and get a dating scan, because we don't know how far along you are. And if you're going to terminate it, it needs to be done before the 12-week mark.
Okay.
But we don't know whether you're between 7 weeks and 11 weeks. So you may only have a week to make this decision. So I booked in that scan, and I went, and I had asked my partner to come with me, and he was late. So he missed the first half of that scan, because he was working. And sitting in a room, listening to a heartbeat, seeing a flicker, it makes you actually realize that there is something inside of you, that you are um, you are the safety blanket for something, is probably the best way to put it. That there is something, a part of you that you now have responsibility for,
Yeah.
and this is going to change your life. And I remember her, the lady taking the scan, talking to me as if I'd made the decision to keep it. And I hadn't,
Yeah.
and he hadn't either. And the guilt and the shame that went inside my head was, like, you're talking to me like I'm going to keep this, and I actually don't think that that's a possibility. I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm not going. It's not something that I've verbalized.
Yeah.
And so you sit in silence, going, "Oh shit," and what's this mean?
Yeah.
And the conversations that came out of that is, this is real, and we need to make a decision, and we need to make a decision quickly. And I think a decision like that is not a decision that you want to make quickly, because it means that, did I actually think about it? Did I actually give it the time and the thought process that I should have? And I think that's the bit that gets me, and it still gets me. And I made the decision to terminate it. I didn't know when I went to that appointment that you don't actually need to go and get a dating scan if that's the decision that you've made.
Oh, wow.
You can go to that appointment and they will do a scan, and they will not show you, so that they can work out how far along it is. But I didn't know that that was an option. And so for me, I was already emotionally attached to a possibility, I suppose. And I was making a decision that it couldn't be. And I had to tell my mum. I had to get my mum to take me to the appointment, because my partner at the time was working. And how do you tell your mum, this is the possibility of your first grandchild, and I'm not keeping it, and I need you to take me to this appointment, and this is what I'm doing? For me, it's a pivotal moment in a lot of people's lives. Like, it is something that people want. A lot of people pay a lot of money to have the opportunity. It is the happiest moment in so many people's lives. And for me, it was one of the scariest, and the fear that attached to that. And I think for me, and still to this day, I really have to stop and think. I have got really close friends. They've had a baby, and she is incredible. But when she told me she was pregnant, and how happy they were, for me, it was like, that could have been me, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And hearing people start to talk about their pregnancy and all the stages, and you go, that could have been me. Like, and when that time comes around, like, your due date, like, that thing is imprinted in your head. You go, I could have had a 1-year-old. I could have had a 2-year-old. This is where they were. And you've got people around you who are so, like, they have that thing that you thought was a possibility, that situation that you could have been in, and you start comparing. Did I make the right decision? Like, was it the right thing for me, and was it the right thing for the other person? And I think when that stigma comes around, it's you're not one to turn around and go, I made this decision once. Like, yep, I terminated a pregnancy.
Yep.
It's not something that you share. It's not something that you open up about. And for me, the support after the fact, after making such a massive decision, was not there. I didn't really talk to people around it. I talked to a couple of friends about it, but it's not something that I actively sought to go and talk to, and I didn't feel that support mechanism was there for me. And I don't know whether that's just because I didn't go looking for it or whether it's something that is not actually there. And so I, again, felt alone and like I was going through something by myself.
Yeah, well, you were if your partner wasn't turning up to the
Yeah.
appointments or turning up late.
And I mean, in hindsight, he was probably sitting in the same space as I was, like fear. What
Yep.
does this mean?
And
And I think,
that could have been his way of letting you know without actually saying it that he wasn't interested in having a kid.
yeah, yeah, probably. And um, the conversations that we had were, we can't guarantee that we're going to be together. We're still so young. We haven't been together for very long. This is probably not going to work because we are so young and we haven't been together for very long. And do you want to raise a child knowing that our prospects are not so strong? Are you willing to take that risk? And at the end of the day, I think the only way that I made it okay for me for the decision that I made was I can't make a decision that is going to impact someone else for the rest of their life without them willingly also making that decision.
Yeah.
Like I can't make it against someone else's will. And I think for me, that's my reframe to make the decision that I made okay. And you know, you make decisions based on something, a point in time in your life. And that decision was the right decision for me at that point in time. That was the right decision for him at that point in time, whether I recognized it or not. It was, and you know, again, I can't let something that you know I could possibly consider a mistake define me where I am now, because I've held on to it. And it's hard because when a decision like that, when you compare yourself to people in situations who have got children, there is a constant reminder every day. You go to the shops and you see young children running around. It is a constant reminder.
Yeah.
You hear of people going, you know, I'm pregnant, we're having a baby, and it's a constant reminder. And
And the
it's,
fact that you played a stepmother role as well. So you, in a sense, knew what it was like to be a mum.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, let's fast forward. I've got about 10 minutes till I have to shoot off.
Yep.
So let's fast forward to, I guess, where you start overcoming a lot of this stuff. And I think I remember you saying it was when you connected with Jules.
It was actually a step before Jules. Well, no, Jules was involved. Julian Pace added me on Facebook. I had joined a network marketing company, and I think I had been in some groups or friends or something, similar circles. And he added me, and I'd see inspiring posts and going through a breakup. They're the kind of things that kept me going. And I saw a post in a random group once saying, you know, we're going to do some goal setting. Like, come join my goal setting session. And I went to that. It was a group of females in Canberra. And that is probably the first step that I took in a personal development journey. And then in the back end of that, I had Jules sending me a message every month, join my challenge. Come do my 21-day happiness challenge. And I'm going, I am happy. Like, I'm fine. I don't need this. And I kept making excuses, and I put it off for about 4 or 5 months. And he said, join my challenge. I said, yeah, I'll do the next one. And he went, will you? And I went, yeah, sure. I'll do the next one. And I remember seeing the ad come out for it, and I joined it. I signed up, and not long after that, I got the message, are you going to do my challenge? It starts soon. And I remember sending him a message going, I've already signed up. Yeah, I'll be in there. And I didn't know what I got myself in for. I just agreed to this person that had harassed me for 5 months to do some challenge that was supposedly going to find my happy. And I remember the first part of that was, can you do a video and tell us why you're here and what you want out of this? And I'm sitting there going, oh, fuck. I don't know. um, and for me, it was I had been working on myself and I needed to work on myself more and I needed to learn to find myself again and to be happy. And I just wasn't quite aware of what that had in store for me. And a lot of the stuff that I suppressed, a lot of the behaviors that I've talked about are things that I learned throughout that challenge. And it's been 2.5 years since I did that. Um, and again, a leopard can't change their spots, but you can always increase awareness. And
That's
that's
awesome.
what I've done.
What's the, I guess, the most profound takeaway you've uh, learnt or taken away from your time within Happiness Co, be it the 21 Day Challenge mentorship program or being in that community in general?
I think the first and foremost thing was human needs, what drives us and what causes us pain. And for me, that was significance. It didn't matter what situation I've been in my life. I've always sought significance. And that's how I've lived my life. And for me, the way that I went about that, that's the trigger that caused me pain as well. And the biggest takeaway I have is changing the meaning of what significance meant to me. And I have worked very hard to create significance in my own life, to not need validation from other people to feel significance. The only validation I need is my own. And it's hard. It's peeling back layers. And I've messaged Jules and said to him, "You shined a light on a shadow in my life that I've ignored, and you made me face it. You made me talk about it. Um, and I don't think I've ever realized what running away and suppressing your problems can do to you and how much it can impact your behaviors. Um, and I now I want to help people. I want to be that person. I want to be the Julian Pace in other people's lives. I want to help people shine a light on those areas that they've suppressed and that they're running away from, because when you're vulnerable and when you open up, it allows other people to have courage to do the same. Um, and I think that's where I am now. And I can't be the change that I want to see in the world if I'm not showing up and if I'm not being authentic. And I'm not perfect and I make mistakes all the time and I bullshit my way through shit all the time as well. Um, and I think for me, I need to be better at recognizing that and pulling myself up on it. Um,
Cool.
and
I think one of the other things you touched on as well was dating yourself. How have you gone about that and how has it helped?
Dating myself, do you know how much fun dating yourself is? I don't know if you've tried this, but
I do, but I do it in a safe way where I take my laptop so it's like I'm working.
I don't do that. I take myself to the movies. I go to the movies by myself.
Oh, that makes me anxious.
Really? I love it. I love it. I don't have to share my popcorn with no one. I can show up when I want. I can change my mind onto what movie I'm going to see when I want. Like, I can stay till the end of the credits if I really want to, because I don't have someone sitting there going, "Let's go." And I remember the first couple of times I was really, what are people going to think? Like, I'm rocking. And then, if you go to the 10 o'clock sessions on a Saturday morning, half the movie theater is there by themselves. Like, it's normal to go to the movies
Nice.
by yourself. So yeah, I go to the movies by myself. I take myself out for dinner. I will go sit at a restaurant by myself. I know I shared it at a live event the other week, and if you go to a Thai restaurant and you get 4 serves of spring rolls, I can eat 3 of them. I don't have to go 2 and 2, because when you have 2 and
Yeah.
you're like, I just want one more, but I can't have one more because that eats into your 2. Yeah, I can have 3. And people turned around after that and went, "Why wouldn't you just eat all 4?" It's like, no, I don't want 4. I want 3. And you have lunch for the next day because you're not going to eat an entire meal.
Nice.
I know. I take myself for walks. I stick my headphones in my ear and I will sit outside and I will read. I don't have a great relationship with reading, and it's because I've never put myself in a situation where I feel comfortable with it, or I've made an excuse for it. Like I've try and do it too late at night. Or I remember Jules telling me once, "Why don't you read in the bath?" I'm like, "What? Why would I read in the bath?" And he goes, "Because you won't fall asleep in the bath." I went, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you'll drown if you fall asleep in the bath." He's like, "Stop giving me bullshit excuses." And I was like, "Oh." I've
If
learned.
Jules can read, anyone can read.
I know. And accepting compliments, not feeling like I need to compliment someone back when they compliment me, just saying thank you and acknowledging it. It's really hard. It's really awkward. But it does get easier. And I think when people compliment you and you automatically respond with, "Oh yeah, your hair looks good too," that's not actually accepting the compliment. That's deflecting it and taking the attention away from yourself. And I think in a world where we are constantly putting ourselves down and questioning our body image and questioning the way that we look, it's really important to accept those compliments. And for me, that I'd be like, yeah, like, "Oh, thanks. Like my hair does look good today. Like I put a bit more effort into it," or whatnot. And I think they're little things that people don't do, and they don't realize that they're not doing them.
Yeah.
And that pivotal question, would you date you? If you asked me 10 years ago, I would say no. If you ask me now, I would date myself, because I have flaws, I make mistakes, but I show up, and I try and fix them where I can. I try and be open, and if you shut yourself off from being hurt, you'll never feel connection either. And that's where I am now. Being okay with the fact that I might get hurt, and knowing that I am strong enough to be okay with it.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah. That fires me up. That's amazing. We'll jump on to a few quick questions and then we'll wrap up.
Yep.
Knowing everything that you've been through and knowing that you're still working through some of it now, what would you say the quality of your life is like now?
I'm not hiding behind a facade. I'm not living in a web of lies. I'm not worrying about what I told one person and making sure that I tell someone else something similar. When you show up and just be yourself, the people that like you for you are the ones that stay in your life, and the people that are in your life because of the person and the facade that you put on, they're the ones that disappear because they don't want to be around you. And at the end of the day, why would I want people in my life that are only there because of what I have chosen to show them? Like, if I can't be myself, then I'm not living my life, and the quality of my life is no good. And I think that's the way that I've lived my life. In the past 2 years, I have made more connections, more amazing friendships than I could have ever possibly imagined. And I don't live anywhere near half the people that that I would consider my family. And yet I still feel loved, and I still feel like I have an amazing support around me. And I know that no matter what point in time, I can ring someone up and they would be there for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's family. I have a family. And you're connected to your family by blood, but I think the family that you get to choose is pretty important. And if you can be your authentic self and they know your deepest, darkest secrets, like, you have nothing to hide.
Yep. And if anyone needs a reason to join Happiness Co., that is probably the best one.
We're a family. And I remember I always tell people, like, the first time I met them, I was like, "Oh, you're part of the family now. Come on." Join a 21-day happiness challenge. I'm like, "Oh, you're part of the fam bam. You're stuck with us." Like, and when people go, "I'm really struggling," I said, "It's fine. It's fine. That's what we're here for. We're family. We'll always support you. It doesn't matter." And I said to one of the girls the other day, in a community where people will celebrate your achievements, um, and help you push through your challenges, and not bring you down, why would you want anything else?
Yeah, that's amazing. What are you most grateful for right now?
What am I most grateful for right now? Um, the opportunity to show up and to
Yes.
be me.
Yes, and that's all you need to be.
Yeah.
Last question. If you had a chance to put a message on a billboard somewhere where you know thousands of people would see it every day, what would
Yeah.
that message be?
Choose love.
Choose love. You've
Choose love.
practiced.
Choose love.
Nice.
I've said
That's
it to you
powerful.
before and I'll say it to you again. Choose love. And I think that even in moments that you don't choose love, you can fix those moments by choosing love.
Yes.
And we're not great. We're not perfect all the time. And I think if what Jules says, what would love say and what would love do, if you always come back to that, you can do no wrong.
That's amazing.
You can always fix things.
And to wrap up, for the people that are unaware, we've done this interview before, but we're doing it a second time because you showed a lot of self-awareness, a lot of empathy for others who may have been impacted by the way that you told it the first time.
Yep.
And so I just want to let people know that I'm proud of you, and I hope you're proud of yourself, because that's a big decision, and it was something that you took time to unpack with Jules himself as well. So I'm just proud of the fact that you took the time to unpack that, moved through fear, and chose to do it again, more authentically this time.
Thank you. Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
Yes,
Thanks.
let it out.
And that's a wrap. No, I really appreciate the opportunity, and my story is mine, and I need to be held accountable for the things that I have done. And when I spoke to you before, I did not show up. I was not authentic, and that's a disservice to me, and that goes against everything that I believe in and that I'm working hard for. And as I said earlier, it's I can't be the change that I wish to see in the world if I am not the change.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the opportunity that you've
Yes.
given me.
You have a good day, buddy, and thank you for making time for this.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.